what I really enjoy about the process is basically a moving meditation. So there's the makeup and the hair, and I have like stacks of fabrics that I tend to throw around, and there's just a lot of experimenting, and in that way it opens me up because I'm having fun and just making a mess in front of the camera. And then there's also the benefit of, now, of the 1,000 photos that I shoot in a session, maybe 100 are actually really nice.
Sure. Hmm.
So it's just a really great way to have a physical expression of what is inside of me. Because I write, there's just a lot of stuff in my head and a lot of me behind my laptop, and this is just really a way for me to step into my body and express myself in that way, which I never have.
Welcome to Papamutes, everybody. Today, my guest is Linda Coussement. She's an author. We'll be talking about her books. She's a photographer, a world traveler. She is in business consulting, corporate business consulting, and more importantly, she's coming to us all the way from Amsterdam. Linda, welcome to Papamutes.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, before we get into the books, etc., just a little background. Were you born in Amsterdam?
I was born in a place called Ridderkerk, which I'm not going to ask you to pronounce. That's which is close to Rotterdam, and then I grew up close to Utrecht, which is in the center of the Netherlands. I studied in Maastricht, and then I moved back up here.
In your bio, I'm just going to read it because it's easier. Um, I had health, the house, the car, the career I enjoyed, the relationships, the fun. I had everything, and yet there was no denying an existential black hole in my soul. When I was reading that, uh, did you feel at that moment in your life that you were depressed?
That's hard to say. I've had various moments in life where I was depressed. Some I did recognize, others I didn't. Some I recognized and I did something about it. Some I did recognize and I just kept going. So that's sort of hard to say.
Hmm.
Um, so the moment of realization was when I was in a relationship, and I remember I was lying in bed and we were going on holidays the next day. And I distinctly remember I'm not happy with going on holidays. I don't even feel a spark of joy going there, and I should be. And that was basically the first trigger of like, oh, wait a second, that can't be good. What's happening here? So what happened then was me then paying attention to what else am I not feeling. And I then realized I'm not feeling anything. So I can't really say that was depression, because I mean, when you're depressed, you're still feeling something. It's not great what you're feeling, but you're feeling something. But at that moment, I was just empty, hollow. There was nothing there. No joy, no pain, no nothing.
So, what
Yeah.
was not working with all that good stuff going on?
What I realized was that yes, there was good stuff going on, but it wasn't my good stuff.
Mm.
So yeah, the job, the house, the relationship, the cats, the whole thing. It it was what I was always taught, not specifically, but because society is built this way, and because humanity is built this way, we are taught like, yeah, that is what you want. And all my friends were doing the same things, and I'd always had the examples of people in my family and my neighbors, and everyone went through that route. Yeah, you have the job and the house and the kids and everything. And I realized then, like, oh, wait, but that's not me. I was just living a life because that was how you were supposed to live that life,
Hmm.
but it wasn't for me. So, I mean, to say I got rid of the relationship is too big and unfair to the guy, because he was still the best person I've ever met.
Hmm.
But yeah, that relationship wasn't working for me. That the city I was living in wasn't working for me. The uh, the job I was working in wasn't working for me, and I had no idea what would work for me. But I figured, let's at least get unstuck from these places and then move forward and see if that does work.
So you were in love, but it wasn't working in a sense.
It was love, but it wasn't in love.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So tell us about your books. There's two of them. Correct me if I'm wrong. First one, Contrast. How did that
Yes.
come about? What's it about, etc.?
Those are two big questions. How did it
Mm-hmm.
come about was the moment that I started to figure out what was working for me and what I wanted to do was also when I started to feel more. And it turns out I'm very sensitive. I'm hyper empathic actually. Um, I started to see more. I started to observe more. I started to experience more, and the more I did, the more I realized like, how much pain there is in the world, how much ugliness there is, and if you're sensitive like I am, and at that moment I didn't really know how to handle it, and I just felt the pain and the suffering in the world. But I could also see and feel all the beauty and all the love and all the amazing things in the world. And between those two contrasts, I just couldn't find my place. And it was something that was just very frustrating and exhausting because in my logical mind, it doesn't make sense. Like, how can there be something as beautiful as a newborn baby and then something as awful as war and genocide and all that? How can those two exist? And my maybe naive frustration lies in the fact that why can't we just all get along? you know,
That would be nice.
why
That would be
why does this
nice.
have
Yeah.
to be? Yeah, so there was a lot of frustration around that. I just I still can't understand it. I mean, I understand humanities, I understand psychology, just in my heart, in my soul. I mean, it's hard enough to be a human. Why add all this unnecessary suffering to it? Anyway, so I was going through that mill and trying to figure out like, okay, how am I gonna make something out of this? Because I did feel in my heart like, okay, I need to say something or I need to do something or create something, and I just couldn't really find my way. And I've tried various different avenues. None of them really took off, and then the idea for the novel just hit me. I was, which is another story, on a trip throughout Europe, and I was fortunate enough to spend some time on a Greek island called Lesbos, and there was a pool there that had a sunset view, and it was amazing. And I would swim my daily laps there. And then during those laps, the idea just hit me like lightning. Yes, you have to write this novel, and it is about a garden. And the garden, if you look at it from a bird's eye perspective, it is basically a yin yang sign. But on the one hand, the circle is made of concrete. In the other garden, it's made of wildflowers. There are two neighbors, and there has to be a ghost in there somewhere. And that's still basically what the story is, or what the setting is, at least. And when I started writing it, the ghost took over. He just ran away from me, like it was his story, and he wanted it to be written. And yeah, the thing is that the story starts with him realizing that he is dead, but still in this garden, which was his garden, and he figures that this doesn't feel quite right. I don't know where I am supposed to be, but it doesn't feel right to still be here. But how do I get anywhere else? And then the story is really about him acknowledging the fact that throughout his life he has been shutting down and bottling up his emotions and not processing the things he should have been processing, which included a lot of trauma and a lot of love and a lot of things like things that we humans go through. So in death, he does process these until he gets to the point where he is able to let go and move on.
Interesting. Now, do you have a writing background or any formal education in writing?
No,
You just wanted to write down
no.
thoughts, and Did you have help piecing it together? I mean, you want it to be
Yes.
structured, obviously,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
people want
yeah.
to
It
read
was,
it, and yeah.
yeah. I've written a lot of nonfiction, a lot of blogging, and I knew I could write, but fiction is something very different. And it was something that I was worried about. Like, how am I ever gonna put a novel into the world if I don't even know where to begin? Um, so luckily, I found in a Facebook group, and I wasn't even looking, but I knew I had to find an editor. And I was in this amazing female entrepreneurs Facebook group, and someone just posted something that wasn't even a sales pitch, anything, just more a thought or sharing of an emotion on her side. And I just realized, ooh, I need to have her. And yeah, we connected, and she has this amazing company with editors, now all sorts of people who are very experienced and who are formally educated in creating fiction and nonfiction books. And they really helped me. So I did all the writing, but every time I sent it in, it came back with a lot of red pen. Like,
No, of
oh,
course, yeah.
this, I see where you're going with this, but it doesn't quite work. How about this idea? So there was a lot of writing and rewriting. And they really helped me put it into shape. And now it's just the most professionally, beautifully edited book, well, I've ever written. There are, of course, many more books like that.
Now, is it?
I'm very proud of the quality.
I'm sure. Is it self-published or is it published? There are people self-publish books. Is it, or is it published, like by a publisher?
No, it's self-published.
Okay.
I wanted to go the traditional route, but the thing is that to be able to do so, you have to, at least in the US, because I wrote it in English, even though I'm Dutch, because well, in English the world is just a lot bigger. Um, you have to first find an agent, and then that agent needs to find a publisher. So what you need to do is just pitch a lot of agents in the hopes that they pick up your book, and then go and pitch it to publishers. And while I was doing it, sending out these emails, I just felt all the energy and life drained from me. It's a piece of my soul.
Sure.
And it just felt very weird to put in an email like, okay, here's a piece of my soul. I really love it. Please love it too. Please at least look at it. And it didn't make sense. And because I also have my business consultancy background, and I still do freelance projects, I had the luxury and the privilege of some financial backing on my own to go the self-publishing route. So that's why I chose to go that way.
Okay. Very nice. Now the other book, how is it to be you? Right?
It's not a book.
Oh, I take that back.
It's
What
a
is
it's
that?
a project.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a project. So um, I thought of writing a book about it, but it didn't happen because contrasts came in. But I might still write a book about it. I do
Hmm.
have ideas for nonfiction that I'm currently working on. So who knows? This it might be my next one. But the idea for how it is to be you, or how is it to be you, was I got to a point in my life where I really learned who I was. I understood who I was, including all the dark little corners of my soul. Um, and for some reason, I still had no idea if there was even the slightest bit the same as another person is or experiences themselves. And in all my years, I haven't been able to figure that out. And I figured, you know what? Let's just go out and ask people the question. So
Sure.
the question came to me, as these things do, again as a lightning strike, but this time on a hike in Normandy. I let it marinate for a little bit, and I decided, I'm gonna take a year off, rent out my house, hop in my little car, and just drive throughout Europe and ask this question to whoever I meet and whoever I feel like asking. And that's what I did. And it started out as me wanting to document it. I made a couple of tiny documentaries about it, and it started out as me wanting to write a book about it. But in the end, I really just wanted to have the conversations. There's
Sure.
something really nice about randomly meeting a person, asking that question, and then just having the conversation without the pressure of having to take a portrait, writing it down, getting their approval on sharing it. There was just a lot of logistical hassle that took away from the conversations, and the conversations themselves are just so beautiful that I just really wanted to stay in that moment.
Now
That's
these were
why the book never lifted
documented
off.
on on tape, on video,
No,
or just.
some,
Mhm.
but most aren't. It was just my experience and my project to do.
Okay. Now you say you've solo traveled to 46 countries. Is that correct?
Yeah,
That's a lot. I mean,
yeah,
I mean, that's a lot of traveling solo. Now, forgive me. I mean, obviously, I know what solo means. So you went on these trips alone,
yeah,
correct? And
yes,
nothing wrong with that. Not knocking it or anything. But you're going to meet a lot of people. I'm assuming you're not like isolating yourself when you're in these countries. You're out and about, or are you? I
yeah.
don't know.
Well, no, it depends on how I'm feeling. I am quite introverted, so if I feel like
Hmm.
just being on my own on a beach for a week, then I'm on my own on the beach for a week. If I feel like partying with everyone I meet, then that's what I do. So,
Okay.
but
All
yeah,
right.
generally you meet a lot of people.
Now, I mean, that sounds expensive to travel around. I mean, I know you rent out the house and you do consulting, but was it costly?
Uh, uh, yes, I mean yes, but I mean I'm 44 now, and I have a decent career, so there's a way more ability and legroom to do it these days. But I started like my first trip was when I was 20, and I did the traditional backpacking through Thailand and Cambodia. And yes, the flight, of
Wow.
course, is expensive. But being there, sleeping in hostels, eating foods from street markets, that's very cheap. And I've been to India. I don't do this anymore, but I've been to India and I've shared a room, and I paid $1 for the room per night.
Wow.
There are meals that you can get for $1 or $1.50. So if you travel smart and pay attention to where you are, where you stay, and you don't mind, I don't know, not walking barefoot in your hotel room, then you can travel at quite a nice budget, and it is very accessible. But it really depends on where you are. Not every country is going to be cheap, of course.
Favorite country that you've been to?
Oh, that's close to impossible because your state of mind is so different
Hmm.
every time you pack your bag. Um,
If you had to pick one, or two, or three.
I really love Greece.
Okay.
I really love Greece. There's just something, I don't know. There are just, you look at Greece and there are a billion colors of blue everywhere, and it's just there's something in the air, and the food is amazing, the people are amazing, and it's just really I feel really good when I'm there. Indonesia as well. Maybe it's because I have roots there. My father was born there. Um, I'm
Italy?
going to stay there. It's hard because it wouldn't be fair actually.
No problem. Have you been to Italy?
Italy? Yeah,
Hmm. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a couple bucket lists for my wife and I. And actually, you mentioned you were Dutch, correct?
yes.
Have you ever been on a Holland cruise? Holland Cruise Lines?
No.
No. Anyway, not to go off on this, but we just came back from the Caribbean, and but Holland Cruise Lines has a what they call an orange night, where everyone dresses in orange, in reference to the
Uh huh.
Dutch heritage or something. It has something to do with the Dutch. Anyway, so
Yeah,
I thought of that when you said
yeah.
that. I
Our
was like,
our royal family, the last name of our royal family is of Orange,
oh,
and so our flag, it's a red, white, and blue flag, but we have this string, or how do you want to call it, an orange string that comes off it as an extra decoration. And if it's the king's
Okay.
birthday, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but this is the end of April. Like the entirety of the Netherlands is dressed in orange and just partying. I mean, if you go
There,
to
that's pretty much
Amsterdam,
what it was. Yeah,
yeah,
it was orange night,
exactly.
party night, and needless to say, I had a good time. Um,
Yeah, I bet.
uh, so you are a self-portrait photographer, correct?
Yeah,
So, I mean, I've seen the work. Obviously, I do my research, and the photos are beautiful. I mean, you're a beautiful
thank
woman
you.
to begin with. Um,
Thanks.
but are you only? I mean, is that it for photography, or do you like taking like when you're on these trips? I'm sure you got to photograph some stuff besides yourself. I'm assuming.
Yeah. Yeah, so I have another account on Instagram as well, which is called How It Is to Be You, and that's just me and my iPhone, but it's still me photographing things I find pretty when I'm traveling. And it's not very active, but that is like my
Hmm.
travel diary, and I do love it because I look at it and I look to all the places I've been, including the ones in the Netherlands, and it's just a really, yeah, it's a photo journal. It's great. And the self portraits, they sort of accidentally came about because I needed a portrait for the cover of my book. And a photo shoot I had done with a photographer, though the photos were amazing and beautiful, they didn't feel right for the book. And I figured, you know what, I sort of know how to operate a camera. Let's just try it myself. And then I just dove into this rabbit hole of self portraits. It became an obsession.
There's good stuff
So
on there.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's something I do now. But I'm also realizing that I really enjoy just bringing my camera, like the other day, to Amsterdam and making photographs in my style, which is a bit more impressionistic. It's black and white, very high contrast,
Hmm.
um, of other places. And I like to go hiking, or at least in the Netherlands, it's just walking for a long time because, of course, there are no mountains. Um, but there are beautiful trees and beautiful landscapes, and I like taking photographs of those as well.
Yeah.
But the self portraits, it's kind of special because I've never been comfortable in front of a camera, so it adds a layer of learning as well for me.
So it opens you up. I know you mentioned
Yeah.
that photography has opened you up. Are you referring to the actual photographs themselves, or just everything in general? Because I have a photography background myself. Grabbed a camera in high school,
Mm.
that whole thing. But is that the same for you? Are you opened up because you're okay with having your picture taken now, or just life in general?
I'm
Because
okay with
photography
having
can
my
take you
picture.
around. I mean, it could really.
It does, yeah. Though it's also it's kind of safe as well to hide behind a little lens. You're always the observer, never actually part, which is something I do enjoy. Um, but yeah, with self portrait photography, it's it's weird, especially if you've never really been in front of a camera like I have. You want to make art and you want it to be beautiful, and I want to look beautiful, but I also want to be true to my inner artist. So I'm always trying to figure out, okay, what can I do? And what I really enjoy about the process is it's basically a moving meditation. So there's the makeup and the hair, and I have like stacks of fabrics that I tend to throw around, and there's just a lot of experimenting, and in that way it opens me up because I'm having fun and just making a mess in front of the camera. And then there's also the benefit of, now, of the 1,000 photos that I shoot in a session, maybe 100 are actually really nice.
Sure. Mhm.
So it's just a really great way to have a physical expression of what is inside of me. Because I write, there's just a lot of stuff in my head and a lot of me behind my laptop, and this is just really a way of me for me to step into my body and express myself in that way, which I never have, and that's just very special to me.
That's good stuff. I mean, I've seen the portfolio, or portfolio, if you will, on your site, and it's good stuff. It's great, awesome.
Thank you.
Um, not to get too heavy, but do you really realistically think that the world could be at peace? Every country could be at peace. I know it's a fantasy, everybody wants that, but do you realistically think that could happen?
I spend a year thinking about, okay, how do we make world peace possible? Literally, I wrote a manifesto and everything. It's hidden safely in my Google Drive somewhere. Um, because I burned out from it. Because I realized, okay, the answer to how do you make this happen? It's fairly simple. As in, if everyone would make the effort to not be an asshole, then the world will be better. If
That'd be
everyone would
great.
make an effort to wave goodbye to the bus driver when they get out, or just step aside on the pavement, or say, I don't know, at least not react in a negative way at certain things, then the world would be at peace. It's very simple because I know I can do it, and I'm also just me. But then you see behavior of people around you, and I'm not an idiot. I know that people are people.
Mhm.
So how do you change that behavior? And that's always where I get stuck. Because
It's
where
rough
do you
out there.
start? Okay, it starts with parents being very conscious of choosing to become parents, and then how they raise their children, and then there's the education, and then there's basic access to housing and healthy food and medical services and all that. So that you need the entire system for people to at least have a chance to be in a neutral state, like
Right.
not an asshole state. And maybe it's possible, but it's not going to happen in our generation, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
So and maybe, and that's something that it's one of the reasons why I wrote contrast, is it's also human nature. I might not agree with it, but it is human nature. There is evil inside of us. There is the shadow part of humanity that we might not want to see, but it's undeniable, and it rears its head everywhere all the time. um and I don't know if your listeners are very spiritual or not. It doesn't really matter, but maybe the fact that we need to learn that those both contrasts exist, maybe
Mhm.
that's the lesson we need to learn while we're here on this earth, whether that's a one-time thing or
Mhm.
or we come back a few more times.
Yeah, you can only
I don't know.
do
What,
what you can do or what I can do, people in general, but the mass population, yeah, it's going to be rough. But you do the best you can.
yeah, yeah, and I try because I've been very frustrated with this. Like, I see it, and I want to do something, but I'm only me, so I can only do what I can do in my circle, and then hope that inspires or positively influences other people as well.
Hmm.
It's why I was so happy with the idea for the novel, because a novel is a very neutral way of inspiring people. It's not me telling people to change their behaviors, because that doesn't work, and it doesn't make me happy either.
Yeah. Okay. So, where can people find you online? I know where, but just if they wanted to research your photos, your books, etc., where can they find Linda online?
Yeah, so it's my first and last name.com. So www.lindacoussement.com. I'm sure there's a bio with my name written down,
Yeah.
because I doubt anyone will get it.
I'm not going to say it
I mean,
again.
even in the Netherlands, I always need to spell my name. It's okay. And then my Instagram is linda.coussement as well. And that's the easiest way that's where I'm most active.
Okay.
But my website is where the heart is.
All right. So let's step away from the topic at hand for a second. I have a section called This or That. It's or a segment, I should say. It's just a preference thing to get to know you, other than what we have talked about, of course. So I give you a couple choices. You just tell me what your preference is. Okay, very simple.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
This or that. Wine or beer?
Neither. I don't drink alcohol.
Answers that question. This is traveling. This would be traveling. Plane or train?
I'm afraid it's plane. Because if I can travel somewhere by train, I'll take the car. Because I like my own little bubble.
Okay. Pizza or pasta?
Oh boy, pizza. Yeah,
Wow. Going with the pizza. Okay.
yeah.
High heels or barefoot?
This is where it really, I mean, the title of my novel is called Contrast for a reason. It's also because I consist of contrast. I have a whole wardrobe here filled with high heels, but I haven't worn them in a long time because I haven't needed to, and I'm just walking around on socks. I would go for the vast majority of time bare feet.
Okay. Beach or mountain?
Beach, if I can include scuba diving.
Oh, wow. Okay. You got it. Rainstorm or snowstorm?
Rain.
I agree. I mean, for me, if I'm in a mountainous area, the snow would be beautiful and all that, but here it would be a pain in the ass. um, cat or dog?
Cat.
Sunrise or moonlight?
This is so hard. Moonlight.
I like nice. Yeah, I like them both, but moonlight's cool. Reading or
Yeah.
writing?
Riding.
Okay. Driver or passenger?
Oh, driver.
Of course, yeah. Got to
I
get
love
the
driving.
got to get the bubble going.
Exactly. Put my music on and just explore.
There you go. Phone calls or texting?
Texting.
Okay.
Again,
Last
it
one.
depends
Yeah.
though with who.
Last one. Movie date or dinner date?
Dinner, because then at least you can talk.
There you go. Speaking of movies, did you watch the Oscars? Did you tune in with the Oscars the other night, or
I saw bits of it. Yeah.
have you seen any of those movies?
No, I'm a bit behind, if I'm honest. But they're all on my list. I've seen Barbie, of course,
I've
and I
seen
really
Barbie.
love Ryan
Yeah.
Gosling's performance.
Yeah, I actually
It was
did see
really
that
cool.
one. That was very good. So what's going on in 2024 for you? Thinking ahead.
I'm now I'm working on a couple of things. So one thing I'm setting up is a print shop, as in selling my photography prints through my website. That's sort of to distract me from the heavier stuff, which is writing a nonfiction book that is sort of connected to contrast in topics and really all about how to find meaning in this crazy world and with all these societal expectations. How do you find your path, your way that is both meaningful and filled with more joy than not, at least. So I'm working on that, and that's sort of a big baby to birth. So a lot of energy is going into that, um, and yeah, beyond that, I really hope to build out this philosophy and my business in such a way that I don't have to do business consulting anymore, which might take a little while, which is fine. But that's part of the ambition or the work that I'm doing in 2024.
How about traveling? Any travel plans this year?
Not really, because the priority is now on the philosophy and the business. So what I'm thinking, because I do need my breaks here and there, and I've been in my house for quite a bit now, and it's a nice house, but it gets small.
Sure.
So what I'm thinking is getting in my little car with a tent and just drive to France and go camping for a week. And the one thing I'm still not sure on is, do I go to the beach or do I go to the mountains? So that's something I'm still debating.
Contrast.
Yeah.
So, Linda, this has been great. I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time, coming to us all the way from Amsterdam. It's been a great conversation. I wish you the best of luck with your books, your photography, consulting, traveling, etc. So, thanks again. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And again, thank you for having invited me.
No problem. Take care.
You too.
You're listening to Unmuted with Papamutes.